It's time for another installment of Sandwiches of Canada. Hello, I'm Sandwich Dad, here on the Prehistoric Podcast 12 Podcasts of Christmas. For today's sandwich, we're going to be making a sandwich all the way from New Brunswick, a funeral sandwich, the cherry sandwich. Let's go. For this sandwich, we'll need a piece of bread. We'll need some maraschino cherries, some cream cheese, and some butter. First step, flatten the bread. Now that the bread is flat, I'll get my assistants to cut up some cherries for me. While they're doing that, I'm going to get some of this cream cheese into this bowl, or maybe since I don't have a tripod, I'll get my assistant to do it. There we go. Fine. Stir. Butter the bread. Then we'll spread our sherry and cream cheese mixture. When it looks more or less like that, we are going to roll it up. The next step is to chill this in the refrigerator for 24 hours. We're not going to do that. We're just going to eat it now. So, cut into 4 pieces. Spread them out nicely so they, quote-unquote, look good. And if you have a dozen more of these, you've got a pretty good spread for a New Brunswick funeral sandwich known as the cherry sandwich. All right, time for the taste test. Cherry sandwich, taste test. That's not bad.
No, not as bad as I thought. The thing is, like, it is. It's the sweetness and the bite from the cream cheese.
It works well.
Yeah.
I would bring that too and eat at a funeral.
Oh, yeah.
Sandwich Dad on the 12 Podcasts of Christmas. Good day!
All right, in 3, 2, 1.
Fucking baby, let's get prehistoric in this shit!
Don't wait till the night before Christmas to be good.
And in 3, 2, 1, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 10th annual 12 Podcasts of Christmas. This is episode 4, I believe, second guest episode. This is episode 4, and it's a very, very special episode because we have done something that we have said that we were going to do for a very, very long time, but I think this is the first, second time, I guess, technically. But we talk about guests. We get guests every year, but usually, just to play it safe, we get people we know and that we're good friends with and stuff. But this year, we've changed things up a little bit. We brought a TikTok phenom, talented son of a bitch, the Sandwich Dad, right here. Can you introduce yourself and what you do?
Hello, I'm Sandwich Dad. What are you talking about? We're best friends.
We've known each other for many years.
Yeah,
we went to high school together.
For many minutes.
As usual, this is Francois.
I'm Francois the Nation.
I'm Andrew Sorsdahl.
I'm Attila the Hun. And that was off the top of my head. Not bad. I've been
That was
really
good.
screwing
That
it
was way
up.
faster than usual.
So I guess, first of all, welcome to the Prehistoric Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This is only the second time we've had a guest we didn't know. We did have a band on a long, long time ago. We do usually have a lot of musicians and people that we work with generally. But for me, I think for all, this is also really cool because we've never had another content creator in any capacity on the podcast before.
And as hopefully you just saw, we was quite awkward, very weird. He comes here, we invite him over here, we totally ambush him. We say, "Yeah, we need you to film a thing
Right now, do it.
I can always film a thing.
Do work for us
Honestly,
now, please."
man, my kids aren't around. This is the only time I would rather come here and do it every day. It's so much easier.
And so hopefully you just saw it. We just did, what was it called again? New Brunswick, you said, from?
Yeah, it was a sandwich of Canada that I've been wanting to make, and it's a cherry funeral sandwich.
Yeah, and it ended up being not bad.
Yeah. It was pretty good. Surprisingly, it did say in the recipe to let it set up for 24 hours in the refrigerator, or the ice box. Probably it's probably an old IOD recipe or something like
Yeah.
that. But just maraschino cherries, butter, and cream cheese on flattened rolled up bread. Surprisingly, yeah, I would eat a lot of those.
Yeah, I think so too. And I guess like putting it in the fridge would just give maybe a little more chew, a little firmer.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
because of the juice from the cherries. I think and we just did it just now in the basement here, but it wasn't runny, wasn't unpleasant.
No, certainly not. The cherries are, I mean, if I had a strainer, probably a little bit less of a mess to clean up. But
Yeah.
all in all, pretty easy to prepare. So, is that one of the easiest sandwiches you've ever made? Or I'm sure you've done
Well-
single ingredient.
I mean, I don't really do a whole lot of single ingredient sandwiches. Sometimes I'll do like a condiment thing. Like I have my condiment corner section where I'll try and riff on a condiment maybe I haven't tried or one that I want to sort of show off that people don't know as much about. But one of the easiest ones I've made, yeah, probably.
Yeah, that's all.
But I had assistants for this one too. Usually I'm on my own, so
I'm gonna,
good.
I'll get
I
these
was gonna
poured
say.
and then. So, we played a little bit of a guessing game. This is a Guinness Nitro Cold Brew.
this is a Guinness Nitro Cold Brew.
Yes.
Cool.
What we've been, one thing I've been trying to figure out is, we know that you were living in the Yukon for a while because of your TikTok content.
Yeah.
We read somewhere something about Ontario expat. Is that your wife or you?
Yeah. My partner, she's from Ontario, from Peterborough. Well, Whitby / Peterborough. So kind of like a skid and a scholar.
Yeah.
So are you originally from Saskatchewan?
I am. Yeah, I grew up here in Saskatoon.
Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's one of the things we were trying to figure out. We're we're kind of a mixed bag. Andrew is originally from Ontario. Francois was born in South Africa, and I grew up on a farm near the Swift Current area.
So I'm the only one from here.
Yes, you're the only one
All
from
right.
Saskatoon,
From Saskatoon. Yeah.
which is funny. So, could you tell us a little bit about? I'm so interested because this TikTok trend has come up, and I don't know. Were you doing Sandwich Dad before TikTok existed?
Well, I don't know if before it existed. I was doing it sort of as a just a blog for a while. I got originally just got the name. Got the sandwichdad.ca website, and I was just doing posts. And what I would do is when my kids were at swimming. They did swimming like one after the other, so I had like an hour to kill, and I was just like, I'm going to sit here and just write about sandwiches, and like I've been like a sandwich guy for a while, for ever since I was about 29 years old. I would always make a giant sandwich for my birthday, and that's kind of like an Ontario story because I was living in Toronto on my 29th birthday, and at that time. None of the big grocery chains were doing like the big lumberjack sandwiches like they all do now, but only Safeway was, and there wasn't any Safeways in downtown Toronto, so I had to go to a No Frills and kind of build my own giant full loaf sandwich, and that sort of became a tradition for the last 11 years now, where I've always I've made my own giant sandwich for my birthday instead of just going and getting one from the store, and so I kind of got known as being a guy who makes a lot of sandwiches, who was interested in sandwiches, and then. With that, I had a friend a couple of years ago, probably right before I started Sandwich Dad, who kind of coined the name. I think it was on Twitter. He was like, I'm going back to work for the first time in a while. Any suggestions on what I should bring for lunch? And I found this video of this 10-year-old kid showing you how to make a bologna sandwich on YouTube. And I sent it to him. And he said, Sandwich Dad logging on. And I was like, yeah, all right, I'm going to take that.
Yeah, very good.
I'm going to write about sandwiches. In fact, that kid's video was terrible. I'm going to make a better video. So I made a bologna sandwich video, which is still the only video I have on YouTube that's like done anything whatsoever.
Cool.
But I did that, and then I started doing the blog, and I did that for probably for a year and a half or so, and then I started doing all the photos on TikTok, and I started trying to make as many different kinds of sandwiches as I could. And then once I started doing TikTok, it was kind of just I was bored and I was making a sandwich, and I could never figure out TikTok for whenever I got it, I'm not going to dance or whatever. So, but you don't like until you first start trying to use it, you don't know how to use it. You don't know how to look at it. There's no algorithm telling you what you like. It's just, you're not even looking at it. You're like, how do I even work this thing? What am I supposed to do here? And so I just made a sandwich, and then, I was also like a musician for a long time, and you're always trying to get these views, and you're always trying to like pump it up, and you're always so worried about like your social media, trying to tour or put out albums and stuff like that, and you just get nothing. And all of a sudden I made one sandwich on TikTok and it's like 10,000 views, and I was like, I've never had 10,000 anything.
That is so awesome.
And then my partner, who's still a musician, she hates it. Because she's still trying to plug away and trying to like promote her own stuff, and it's like, oh, you got 50 views, did you?
Well, I mean,
You're talking
Yeah.
to three guys who make music videos for a living.
Yeah. So you guys totally get it. So you're like,
Yeah.
you just made a sandwich, and that's how I felt. It's like I've been plugging along for years and years trying to promote my own stuff, and all of a sudden I make a sandwich with a stupid voice, and it's a hit. And so obviously I kept doing it, and that was like the same time that like my youngest son was born, and so I was kind of at home. I was working from home anyways, and he was just little, so he'd just be on the counter kind of thing, and it was really easy to just be able to film it. And as time has gone on, he's had to slowly fade out of being a part of the videos because he's just way too much.
right.
Yeah.
See, that it's very interesting. At the very kind of beginning stages of our career is when the sharing YouTube content on social media still worked.
Right.
And when we released our very first music video, we hit 10,000 views
In a week.
And then we hit
Nice.
15,000 views in a few more days. And we were like, we are the most amazing filmmakers of all time. We're completely unstoppable. And then,
like, shout out to, like, we also had like a great team. Like, it was like the band and all the family. It was one of those things where everybody was behind that
Yeah.
first music video, and everybody was really trying to like share it. So there was that, but it was like it's
night and day.
Yeah.
and the subsequent videos, I mean, we've done well since.
Yeah.
But it took us 4 years to get back to those levels of views on
It's
content.
hard, man. I mean, even on YouTube now, I post all my stuff to YouTube. I'm thinking of like changing and doing like separate videos just for YouTube to try and like better hit their algorithms because the TikTok videos aren't doing it. It works fine on like, and you know, it's kind of a crapshoot who gets what too, right? Because I mean, you know, I know lots of other sandwich creators, and then
That's awesome.
one day,
That statement alone is
well, yeah,
amazing.
like these guys are all my friends, you know. Like I don't know if you heard me. I was on The Current the other day on CBC.
Yeah.
Well, I saw it on
National-
your website. I didn't
Yeah.
listen, but
And like that had nothing to do with me or them knowing who I was at all. That was all Barry.
Okay.
Sandwiches of History.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Barry and I have been friends since the beginning. We've been pals and like sharing each other's stuff for forever. But Barry, like maybe it was like a year and a half ago or something, he got a huge hit on Instagram. And like we were always about level on TikTok, and then like all of a sudden he got a huge hit on one of his videos on Instagram, and he went to like 100,000 followers on Instagram overnight. And I only have like 5,000 on Instagram. We still have about the same on TikTok. But then sort of same thing. I had a video hit on Facebook of all places. I don't even look at my Facebook most of the time, but I had them cross posting from Instagram, and all of a sudden I went from like, you know, a couple hundred followers to like 60,000 overnight.
Oh, wow.
And it's one of those things where and then like, you know, Barry doesn't have quite the numbers there, and it's like we make the same stuff all the time, and like it's crazy that one platform likes it, one platform doesn't. It's still kind of the same stuff. And it's just about the algorithm like hitting it
And putting it in front of those-
and
the
putting it
right
in front of
people.
those people.
Yeah.
And then like it can be so frustrating when it doesn't happen, especially when you're making things that aren't just, you know, you can't just hammer out a bunch of them like music videos. I mean, that takes a long time. That takes a lot of work, and trying to get to those numbers where you're even like hitting like 10K or something like that. It's so frustrating when you can't do it because it's going to take a while for you to make another one.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Oh, and we had one of our earlier videos was for Eliza Doyle, and she was the fill-in banjo player for the Dead South when they were touring in Europe, and their banjo player fell ill. And just because of obviously their status, her music video was released, had a few thousand views, and then it jumped to 250,000, like
Nice.
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But it really didn't have anything to do with the quality of the video, or, you know, there are so many factors that we're really trying to refine to try and make them as consumable and enjoyable and shareable as possible. And really the only factor that was like, yeah, she was on stage in Germany and now we got 250,000 more views than we would normally have.
that's the thing is like we don't I don't know what the word is, but it's like we don't approach making a music video like to make it mass marketable, if that makes sense. We don't like sit down and like what is the most
Trend, yeah.
what is the trendiest
You
thing.
guys
And
don't
then-
have a focus group.
yeah, you know what I mean? It's mostly about like what's the song. It's like what's the song? You try to match the song, try to get some good visuals. What is the band like? Try to represent them in a way that makes sense. But it's a little sad. Like it's great artistically, obviously very satisfying. But it's like it's a little sad because obviously clientele to a degree, they want a music video, but they also want their music video to do well. And to a degree, it's something that we can't guarantee it. Like we can make you the best music video that we can. That's going to be like artistically, in our opinion, is going to be artistically, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's going to be there from that side. Like we're going to bring it all the way there. We're going to the filmmaking is going to be technically well done. We're going to tell the story as good as we can. We're going to represent you the best we can. But to a degree, it's like you said, we're not doing focus groups. I'm not just going to interject stuff that's popular just to try to pump up views. I still want to make something that I'm like, well, this reflects the song. It's not just whatever. And yeah, it's a little sad. It's like you talk to a client, and to a degree, we're content creators. We're not marketers. Like that's kind of our line. Like that's not what we do.
And we have made quite a bit of our own individual independent creative content just for ourselves and for our audience. And we've had like a few videos. It's so funny, like when you start getting in like the tens of thousands views, I'm like, that's nuts to me. And we have a video, it's got like 12,000 views. It was an independent creative, and like people are commenting on it, and we're like, oh my God, there's a comment. What's it like when like people are reaching out to you and commenting and stuff from a content creator perspective? Does that feel fulfilling? I can imagine.
Yeah, it does. I mean, like there's a weird sort of like, haha, I did it kind of feeling that you get when like the only time it's ever happened is like when I started doing the Sandwich Dad thing, where all of a sudden you open up your TikTok and the notifications is 99 plus, and you're like, that's right.
That's so cool.
99 plus. They can't even count higher than that. That's awesome. Oh shit, I got to spend like 3 hours like responding to stuff now, but still.
So are you like when that's happening? I mean, obviously it gets tiring, and you have a bunch of other responsibilities outside of TikTok. Are you trying your best to get back to all those people, or is that more of when you're starting out? That's kind of a thing.
I keep doing it too, and I know that like a lot of the guys that all my other sandwich buds too, they always try and reach out to most of their comments. I know someone like Jake at Roll for Sandwich. He's at the point now where he can't respond to everything.
I was going to say he's in the millions.
He's at like 2.5, 3 million followers right now, and I know he always responds to mine, which is nice.
Yeah,
because we're still buds, but
10% is a 250,000. Like you can't do a 250,000 responses.
Well, and that's it. Most of his videos have at least 1,000 comments and things like that, and that's a full-time job responding to comments. But you do kind of there's all these myths about the algorithm. What you want to make, you want to make sure that you're a good creator. You want to make sure that you're there and you're posting regularly, and that you're liking every comment that's a good comment, and that that you're managing your page. There's I don't know if it's a myth or if it's partly true that the algorithm rewards more engagement on the part of the creator as well. And it is it is especially on TikTok, it is marketed. It's like it says liked by creator, so you want to make sure that you're kind of getting in there and in managing those comments as best that you can, so that the next one, if it hits, I don't know if it works, if it's true or not.
And the algorithm can take it away.
Well, and that's it too, right? Like, I mean, there's sometimes when lots of people feel like they get shadow banned for a minute, like all of a sudden you're like, I think where I'm at right now, I'm at like 280,000 on TikTok, and that's definitely my biggest audience. And there are some videos I'll post like, how does this only have 2,000 views? Every other one of my videos has like between like 8 and 10K, which still is like a small fraction of the people who follow me.
Right.
It's one of those things where, and then all of a sudden you do one, and it's a terrible video, and you hate it, and you're like, I just needed to get some content out there.
And that's the one that hits.
300K. What is going on here? But yeah, it really is super hard to predict. Like you try and go on trend. You try and the one thing I will say is anytime I do one of I do like a response to one of Jake's videos, it always goes through the roof.
Yeah.
At Roll for Sandwich.
Yeah.
That's always kind of a guarantee that I might get a few extra followers out of that. But I don't want to just jump on other people's content all the time either, right? I want to try and do things that are original and fresh. But then you also kind of start to feel stupid doing the taglines and like the similar things. But that's one of the things that people like it on TikTok, is that certain creators have their little things that they say, or like their intros or whatever. Everyone likes having that familiarity, and that's definitely something that I find is very unique to TikTok. Not that creators on other platforms don't do it, but it's almost like this this expectation that kind of gets a bit grinding, but also, it's kind of nice to have a tagline,
Yeah, it kind of fits the whole, like you're creating a persona, you're creating almost
Yeah.
a brand almost, and you want to stick on brand in character kind of thing almost.
Yeah, you just feel kind of like a dork doing it all the time.
Yeah.
So, and I'm also just fascinated by like there being an online community of sandwich guys that are all talking to each other.
Well, so yeah, and I mean, like, basically, I have a group chat with Barry and with Jim Beheimer at Sandwich Idiot, and it's funny because when I started doing my blog, I was like, no one else is doing this. No one else is doing this. And then I found Jim's website, and it's like, oh, this guy's been doing it 8 years before I started.
Right.
He's already written about 600 different sandwiches,
Yeah.
Jim does 3 a month no matter what, and he's been doing it for, I guess, like 11 years now or something like
Wow.
that. So he is an internationally recognized expert on these things. But it's nice now because, now that I'm friends with him, I don't just have to go read his articles. I just text him.
Yeah, right.
I say, like, last week I made the Made Right, which is like a sandwich from Iowa. And it's like, I never really wanted to make that, but, I've heard Jim talk about it a couple of times, and it's been on my radar for a long time. And I was like, he grew up from a town where, it's kind of from. And so it's just like, how do I make this properly? So no one's going to come back at me and tell me this is wrong. And, he basically wrote me a book.
Yeah. So how do you guys? How did your relationship with these other content creators start? Like just a random direct message to them saying, "Hey, we're all making sandwiches here. Let's chat."
Well, I think like Barry was probably the first one at Sandwiches of History, because I think he started I think he had started on Instagram a bit before I started, and then kind of went dead, and then he started his TikTok maybe a couple months after I kind of started going with mine, but like similar times, and so we started being tagged in each other's videos, and we had the same kind of amount of followers, and so we did a couple like collaborations together. Chatted every once in a while and just direct messages. We kind of just became friends. And anytime there was a sandwich anything on TikTok for a while, we'd kind of be two of the ones that would get tagged. And like we weren't like the really quick like bread sauce. But like the slap it down. There's like another style of there's lots of other styles of sandwich videos on there that are just like really really quick.
Yeah, quick cuts and
yeah, and just like and then it's just like some like 20-something just taking a bite, and it's literally like a 30-second sandwich. You're like, you have to watch it 800 times just to see like, what meat was that again?
Yeah.
Was that ham? But like we're a bit more long form. We actually kind of talk about it and try and discuss the sandwich, talk about how it tastes, kind of thing. So it's a little bit different from that kind. And I think we kind of got lumped in together because of that, because we had more long form content. And then I also tried, because I'd been doing the blogs before, to give a little bit of information about the sandwich and where it's from and why the ingredients were what and why I was replacing them, because I lived in the Yukon with some bullshit superstore ingredients.
yeah.
And then eventually I started kind of becoming friends with Jim on Twitter, because he wasn't on TikTok. And I kind of convinced him through like just kind of like chatting with him on Twitter to start making videos. And then all of a sudden he got lumped into it. And that was around the same time that Jake at Roll for Sandwich started doing things. And then he started getting tagged in these videos as well, before he sort of like jumped up to like mega heights. And then so he sort of became part of our little group as well. And it really just kind of became a thing of like these 4 dudes who kind of make slightly longer form sandwich content and actually talk about the sandwiches make dumb jokes or puns or whatever. And there's lots of sandwiches makers out there, but there's the 4 of us who kind of have like a similar vibe, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine you guys are kind of stronger together and bounce stuff off each other. And
Yeah, well, for sure. And like I say, it's been one of those things, like the top secret thing that we've been talking about for a bit is that Jim and Barry and I have been talking about, and actually like outlined 13 episodes for possible podcasts. We've just been really busy.
Yeah.
Around the time we were going to start maybe exploring it a bit was around the time that I was moving from Yukon down here to Saskatchewan. And so I was like, I need a couple months, guys. And then, they have their own things that they have going on. But maybe in the future still we'll get together and try and put something like that together. And,
that would be super.
That'd be
cool.
sweet.
well, the nice thing is, too, is that Barry has a lot of guest power these days. I don't know if you've seen some of his, but I mean, like, the series that I guested on most recently in August, the first guest of that was H. John Benjamin.
Wow.
That is
Who is a
John Benjamin fan.
who became a friend of Barry's just because, like, the guy has like his Instagram is nothing, but he followed Barry and like reached out to him and asked him if he could do a plus up to one of his sandwiches. Like, I guess it would have been beginning of this year in 2023. And all of a sudden, he just came on. His plus up was just like a shot of whiskey, I think. I can't even remember what the sandwich was. But I missed her. I was like, how the hell do you know H. John Benjamin? And he's like, he just reached out to me. And I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And now he's friends with all these big chefs too. Like he had like, a bunch of people like Top Chefs on and stuff like that. And like,
That's
I'm
super
a
cool.
Top Chef fan. I'm a big food guy.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, how are you getting these names that I've only seen on TV, And then so I know Jim and I are both just sort of like, oh, Barry can totally get one of these guys as a guest on the podcast.
Yeah,
you got to make this
absolutely.
happen. But we're all just, I don't know, we're all pretty busy. And by we all, I mean, I'm definitely probably the one who's holding it up because I'm just like, I got too much going on. And I have nothing going on. I just have a stupid family and a stupid job. That's all.
Well, I mean, I think it's very commendable that you can pull off a rising TikTok career and do all that other stuff is nothing short of incredible.
That's why I don't post as much anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also like it's different too because ever since I moved here, my kitchen's not as nice. Like in my kitchen in the Yukon, I have this really big island where I could clip tripods too really easily, and it was a really good visual. I always had like basically a giant mountain over my shoulder if I wanted to look outside for a minute. And now I don't even my kitchen's big enough to have an island, but we don't have one yet. So I just kind of have this under the counter, and it feels just like there's never enough room. And
Yeah.
cleaning it up is always a big deal because my kids have always smeared it with peanut butter and jam or whatever, And so it's less my space. So I'm trying to figure out if I should just like get like an induction burner and like a little mini fridge downstairs and like set up like a
little
my
studio
own
space
little
kinda.
studio space. But then like I have to do that. I can't do it when my kids are awake. I got to do it when they're in bed. And by the time they're in bed, I just want to go to bed. So it'll happen eventually.
Well, it's kind of like when we started, the four of us all lived in a 2-bedroom basement suite that was as big as
Yeah.
a postage stamp.
Yeah.
And
that was the same year.
we would shoot
Yeah.
podcasts and we were shooting commercial content, and it was like pack everything up and hide it in a closet
Oh.
so we could live in the space.
Like
I
the
hate
room.
that. I was
Yeah.
doing that too because I've done a bit of voice work as well. Like I used to do some audiobooks and I did stuff like that. And
That
when
does
we were in
not
the
surprise
Yukon, I had a studio that was literally our laundry room. But in order to make the laundry room a feasible space to record, it was a half an hour setup to hang blankets literally everywhere in this probably 6x9 room. And just literally hang up like giant comforters and haul out all of my mics and haul out all of my stuff out and like precariously balance the laptop on the washing machines that also had a sheet over it and be like, okay, I can do this for 2 hours tonight while the kids are sleeping.
Yeah, that's
And then I have to put it all away because she needs to do laundry tomorrow and she's not going to like it if I don't take my stuff down. And like, having to live in this space and move stuff around, it's just, it's really hard to like find a space that works for you sometimes. Even when I came down here, you guys are like, we've been setting up this space for a long time. It takes a while.
yeah. I mean,
It's like even this stuff. It's like these cameras that you see here. We literally were filming yesterday. We were filming a live music video with these cameras and that light and like so all this stuff. We're on like steady cams and we're like in all these crazy places at the studio we were just at, and it's like we need to set up for the podcast today, and it's like it's kind of the reality of how we do things.
but
right
it's
now.
not nearly as bad as it used to be. It's
Oh,
like
yeah, no.
tear everything down. Now at least like we have a space, leave
Yeah.
all of our decorations up, and
Yeah.
you know, mic
You don't have to
stands
put it away
underneath.
before you go to bed. Which
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, the first place we were in, like the room, I was staying on a futon in the room that was also where we had our editing computers and all of our equipment. So it was like climb over the equipment, put the futon down, try to sleep for a while.
Well, and then like
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, if we need to get this project done tonight, Francois going to stay up and edit, drag the computer out into the kitchen so that other people could sleep, and you lived in the living room.
I didn't have a
You
room.
slept on the couch in the living room.
Pull-out couch at least. Hey,
Yeah,
it was a
that's
bed.
true. There was
Oh,
a bed
man.
there technically.
It's so funny. Like when I was in high school, I had two sisters, and my sisters just got preferential treatment. Like they got the rooms with doors, and I just had to sleep in a space that was open to the world. And it's like, man, you think about teenage boys. It's like, who needs the fucking room here? Like one of us is a pervert, and the other two are fine. And anyways, it's funny. It was like I remember when we first did that. I'm like, man, I'm back in the space. Like I have to exist, and like somebody could just walk in anytime. Like there's no nothing. It's like whatever. It's like very funny. Yeah.
No, I was just going to ask, what do you find the differences? Because I've never, like, when I watched your content, I watched it all through YouTube because that's how I consume content.
Yeah.
What do you find different about, I know you're just, you don't have the same success on YouTube that you have on TikTok, but what's your take on the different platforms and where you're posting content and what's working and what isn't, and frustrations and things that you like?
Yeah, well, I like the way TikTok works, I think, better than most. And it's not because I'm more used to it. Like, I'm definitely, I've definitely been on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram a lot longer than that. But I like for the kind of content that I do, it's kind of the easiest. I find it's the easiest to kind of manage, like content that kind of actually does get kind of big as well. One of the nice things is that when you look through your comments, you can sort by which is comments and which is likes. So I can sort by comments. And then they have a feature that they took away for like a year, but they brought it back, where instead of having to go to individually into each comment and go to the video 800 different times, you can, if you're just liking it or replying to it, you can do it through the notification screen rather than going into the video every time, which is something that I really like about being on TikTok for that. And I mean, it's nice because it's the only place that anyone ever comments, and things tend to go viral, is mostly on TikTok. Instagram is also is good. I like the YouTube Studio app, but I find that the hard thing with YouTube is that I guess I still maybe just don't understand like the tagging and the like where I'm supposed to put what, and I try and do like you try and do the research on like, okay, so are you supposed to tag in your description? Or are you supposed to like make sure you have certain keywords in your title? And the answer is yes to all of those, but the ones that I might use for Instagram might not be the same ones that are going to be big on TikTok. And I feel like the only TikTok video that I have that's big is the first one I ever made, which was the how to make a bologna sandwich. It was long, it was like 6 minutes. It was literally just me making a bologna sandwich and talking about it for 6 minutes, which seems crazy long when you've been doing shorts for all this time. And like no breaks, no editing. And that one has like 60,000 views or something like that. Nothing else even has like 10K on YouTube.
Right.
And so I keep thinking like, maybe I should just do like more. And I know that Barry did this. He started shooting all of his videos in horizontal so that he could post them horizontal to YouTube rather than have just the 16:9 ratio. And I keep thinking, should I do that? But then I also think, I don't want to fuck around with fixing my ratio for the two platforms that are actually doing a lot better for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of extra work.
And so we're like the opposite of that, where it's like
Exactly. You don't want to have the yeah, and
it's like it's funny because like these cameras, they do it's interesting. They had a firmware update a little while ago. These two that we use, and actually now they do have a what do you call it, a gyroscope or a what do you call that? It can sense when it's
Gyroscope.
gyroscope. And anyway, so now it'll sense if you have it vertically, and then it'll change the format to all the graphics will be vertically. So it's cool. But the one thing it doesn't do that's kind of irritating, and I still have to cut out a little piece of paper to give me an idea, is like I'll have to cut out a little 9x16 piece of paper and then tape it to the screen so I can be like, okay, it's safe. Like this will work if we want to crop it for like a phone format. And it's like, why can't I just like? There's no because there's all these safe margin settings, right?
Yeah.
That it's like you can see these whatever. It's like, why isn't there one that shows me a 9x16 right in the middle of the screen? And I don't know. It's a weird oversight to me. Well, yeah, it's like it's weird how even you feel like it's like you kind of got to be filming for two formats now, and it's they're not making it easy.
And when I filmed for the last one I did with Barry, he's like, can you please film it in in horizontal in 60:9? And I was like, well, okay. And it was fine, but like definitely I tried to be conscientious of that when I was filming to make sure that it would look good once he converted it. But there were definitely some shots where you're like, oh well, this is way off center. This looks terrible because you can only do so much. But I have been thinking, being like, I need to just maybe do like a long form video, or even just do a different kind of video that I post just in the regular widescreen format that I can post like sort of I can post it to everywhere, but just leave it in that sort of long form, or maybe crop it or whatever. But something that's like a little bit different, something that's a bit longer, something where I'm just kind of sitting there talking about sandwiches. Because the one thing that I don't do that I kind of regret a bit is go into the history of the sandwich a bit. Like when I was doing my blog, because my job before now just being a government journalist, I used to work for Parks Canada, and I used to be an interpretation coordinator, and so I used to basically write programs and tours for Parks Canada in the Yukon, and I loved that job, but it was only seasonal, and I had too many kids, and I had to get a real job. But I kind of once I stopped doing that, I started taking that and sort of applying it to sandwiches and trying to create these programs. Like if I was talking to someone about a grilled cheese sandwich, I could talk about it for an hour if I wanted to. Why don't I just sit and do that and have some backgrounds and then maybe insert some, I don't know what the technical term is for it. You have a photograph and you zoom in or out on it. And that documentary technique.
That's they coined that to Ken Burns. He's the PBS documentarian.
It's true. They coined it Ken Burns. Yeah. But do you know where it was first used?
No.
It was first used in the film City of Gold. It was, I think it was an NFB film, but it was Pierre Burton. It was a 10-minute film about Dawson City, where I used to live in the Yukon. I used to live just down from Pierre Burton's house, actually, and it won the Oscar for Best Documentary because it was the first documentary film that literally was a film, but it was almost all just still photographs from the Klondike Gold Rush and just zooming
slowly zoomed. Yeah.
You can find it on YouTube. It's just called City of Gold. It's 10 minutes long. It's an awesome film.
I would love that.
Yeah.
I used to play what's that Oregon Trail Canadian version? Yukon.
Yeah, was it the Klondike Trail or something like that?
Yeah, that sounds right.
The trail was the Chilkoot Trail. I used to be the interpretation coordinator for that trail, but still.
Yeah, it's oh man, I love that game. I actually got it to work on my computer and played it not that long ago. I mean, I think it's cool to take those real world skills and apply them to, something as different as making a sandwich.
Well, and I think, pardon me, I think those people who do that are like my friend Jim. His videos are like what I would love my videos to be. They're so he's so well spoken. He definitely writes out his entire thing he's going to say. He doesn't just wing it while his son is screaming in the background like I tend to do. But it's always so well thought out and well worded, and it's absolutely perfect the way he describes the history of a sandwich and why he's making this sandwich, and why the people of this region eat this sandwich this way, and he makes it as perfectly as he possibly can without actually going to that place and getting those ingredients. And that's kind of what I was doing for my blog as well, and what he does for his, which is called Sandwich Tribunal. Oh. And it's every time I see his videos, I get a little bit jealous. I'm like, I wish I did more history, but now I don't want to do that because I don't want to be stepping on Jim's toes.
You don't want to follow in that footstep.
But I still want to tell people about the history of sandwiches. I still want to tell people a little bit more long form what goes on. If I created a new video, and I think I am going to do this now that I'm saying it out loud, is just having photographs and sort of the Ken Burns technique there, zooming in and out and kind of talking about grilled cheese sandwiches. I can do that for an hour. One time my wife couldn't sleep, and so she's like, "Can you just talk to me about sandwiches for a while?" I'll last 15 minutes. She fell asleep. I kept going because I wanted to see how long I could go.
I have to say, number one, I totally understand how you could do voice work because I think your voice is just incredible. And number two, a question that we, not as much on our podcast, but we talk about as Canadians and Canadian creators, we aspire to, eventually we'd love to do a feature film. And one thing that we talk about is Canadian identity and what does that really mean? And I'm just curious what your perspective on that is as a Canadian creator. Just the Canadian identity. It's a big question, I guess, but
yeah, well, I think it's multifaceted as well because what does it mean to be a Canadian in certain parts of Canada? What does it mean to be a Canadian as a whole? What does it mean to be a Canadian artist? Do you take some of that from Canadian film? One of my favorite quotes, I can't remember who said it. It might have been Paul Verhoeven or something like that. Was if Canadian film is always real and it's always tragic. It's if Starship Troopers was filmed in Canada, the bugs would have been regular size and they would have won. Right. I can't remember. It might not have been Paul here, but it was someone who said that, and I was like, that's a great quote on Canadian film.
Yeah.
And so you try and think, if you're making a Canadian long form film, do you start to take things like that into perspective? You take the history of Canadian film into perspective. When it comes down to making sandwiches, how do you take that into perspective? And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do with the Sandwiches of Canada series. Cool. Is trying to figure out the story of Canada through sandwiches. And it's taking a while, and I need to do a lot more research, kind of in the field, Right now, I'm kind of just doing it through comments and through searches and through talking to people here and there. But like I've still come up like pretty short. And the one thing that I think is the most annoying thing is I know that every small town diner all over Canada has like a weird specialty sandwich that everyone's just everyone within 100-kilometer radius knows all about it, and nobody else knows about it. And maybe it's like this this identity of hyper regionalism where people don't necessarily want to like brag about it. Or maybe it's something they're even a bit ashamed of. I can see people like in New Brunswick being like, "Don't tell them about the cherry sandwich. What the hell is wrong with you?"
Yeah, we don't want to be known for the cherries.
We don't want to be. No one wants New Brunswick to be known for the cherry sandwich. Come on now. It's like I had people like really mad, people in Alberta who were really mad that that one of the sandwiches of Alberta was the QB burger, which is just like the kielbasa patty, and they're like, "Why isn't it a steak sandwich? This is bullshit." I was like, give me an Alberta steak sandwich and I'll do it. But this is the one that I found that is representative solely of this one small town that makes these giant sausage patties just outside of Edmonton. Mundare is the name of the town that makes them. It's a sandwich that's hyper-regional, specific to Alberta, really specific to around the Edmonton area. That's the only place you can really get them. I would love to make an Alberta beef sandwich that's specific to Alberta, but I'm not just going to make a steak sandwich and just be like, this is an Alberta sandwich. No, there has to be some kind of identity to it.
Right.
And I think that's the hardest thing, I think, as Canadian creators and as just Canadian historical documentarians, is that like, what is our identity? Because we have to try so hard to separate ourselves from the Americans.
I feel like that's so much a part of our identity is it's
trying
less
to be separate.
It's less about what we are and more, we're not this.
Yeah.
Like we're not America, but like what actually is this thing that we're not.
And sometimes it comes in to just be like really dumb stereotypical stuff. It's like, hockey and Tim Hortons and stuff. It's like, we haven't had the Stanley Cup in a million years, and Tim Hortons is owned by like what? Molson's owned by Coors now.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So what are we actually? We can't just be a collection of brands and sports and stuff like that. There's got to be apart from regional identities. There's got to be like this this collective. But how do you figure that out when everyone's so tight-lipped about all the things that they do? And I mean, that's one of the reasons I like, like some of those CBC shows, like what's that one, like Still Standing, where the guy was like really just small towns.
I love Still Standing series. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah. Oh, he was actually also just in Dawson City recently. I guess that episode was on. I got to go watch it because I think a bunch of my friends are in it. But
That's super cool.
I've always thought that, and obviously I'm super biased because Canadian, but I always thought You Gotta Eat Here was a better show than Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives.
Yeah, with John Catucci.
Yeah.
The best part about him was that he was the bus driver in the Doodle Bops.
Really? I didn't know that. I didn't know
So if your kids watch that awful Canadian show, which my oldest did for sure, you're like, oh, there he is. He's got to eat here.
Yeah, my nieces and nephews are really into the Doodle Bops. I kind of talking about the regionalism aspect. I know that when we were kind of toying around with, finding some Saskatchewan content creators to reach out to try and, bring some people on the show, it's not easy. It's funny because I was watching one of your TikToks and you were talking about how 60% of your audience, at least at that time, was American. It maybe
it's probably about the same still. Yeah,
probably about the same still. So I'd seen your content in the past, and then I find out you're from Saskatchewan or you're living in Saskatchewan and you're back, and I'm just like weirdly excited that somebody with some clout is from Saskatchewan.
That's a Saskatoon regional thing though too. Like I was talking with some friends and they were like, I can't remember. It's hard to remember exactly what they said, but there really is sort of like a this sort of like sardonic self-hatred that Saskatchewan has for itself, where it's sort of like if we who's from Saskatchewan, you're going to mention someone that you think is not that great.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't know, like I guess Widemouth Mason's from here, and you're like, okay, but like. And I'm not shitting on Widemouth Mason. They're fine. But it's one of those things where it's like you're only going to mention something that's like, well, what do you have to do in Saskatchewan? Well, I guess you go to the Western Development Museum.
Yeah.
It's like, we can't help but kind of like shit on ourselves.
Well, I mean, like we've worked with Earl Pereira, who used to be the bassist for Widemouth Mason, but that's so come and gone now. It's like it's so passé, non-existent. Like
yeah, like it's like reaching into the past. It's like, well, 20 years ago there was a band from here that was popular.
We had a Trivial Pursuit Canadian edition that had Wide Mouth Mason on one of the answer cards.
Whoa!
I was like, whoa.
That's how you know you've made it.
Yeah. That's, but who else? What's the other guy's name that we were talking? We did reach out to him. He hasn't got back to us yet.
He's the guy from Regina who does I'm leaving pencil crayons in a jar and vodka for a month. I'm going to see what, or we
That
can
guy's
see what
from
happens.
That guy's from
Yeah.
Regina.
He looks like he's from Regina.
He's from Regina.
Don't tell him I said that.
But
Maybe it's a compliment, but that's funny. I've seen that guy so many times, and I'm just sort of like, I'm not going to stick around for this. It's a cool concept. And like, it looks like his videos are pretty pro, man. Like,
Yeah,
it looks
I
like
mean, he
they
does a
look
great-
really good.
Yeah.
And it's a cool concept, and obviously he's doing pretty well. So
it's just funny that there's not enough of, I don't want to call us because we're not part of that same group. No. We're creators adjacent, we're in the same space, but we don't do what you guys do. But we don't have like a let's all chat or a, what's going on, or should we meet up once a year and have a convention,
Or like, how can we help each, like, I'm sure there's lots of opportunity for like
Synergy.
collaboration, synergy.
yeah, I think everything seems so far apart, even though it's like not that big of a city. I think things really seem far apart for people all the time. It's like the most spread out small town of all time, you know. And I would love to. Like, I tried to get together with Clayton Croker from Cruise, who was doing the food reviews for. But I don't know if you saw his stuff for a while.
The chicken finger.
Yeah, he did the chicken fingers, and he was doing the pepperoni pizza.
Yeah.
But then I guess he started getting a bunch of shit for the pepperoni pizza one. People like coming at him, like really.
People are crazy.
Just being awful about the pepperoni pizza reviews. And like around that time was around I moved, and I was like, hey man, like if you like, he followed me as well. And I was like, I would love to like go and do something with you if you want. And like we were thinking about going and like eating the giant pizza at the Cave and stuff like that. But then he toned down the food content, and like, I'm sure for personal reasons, but also I think people were just really shitty too.
Oh, when we made one of our first pieces of content, we posted it to our Saskatoon, and boy, that was a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's
And
the one.
you
It's
think
the
you're
most
like,
toxic
hey,
place.
There's so few people in Saskatchewan trying to do stuff at all.
Yeah.
That it's like maybe you'll get a little like pumping tires, like, hey, keep going for it,
Yeah.
guys. Like, you're not there yet, but you'll get there. You know what I mean? That's what you're looking for. And people are like, fucking kill yourself. Like, never
Yeah.
do this again. You suck. I hate you. You should hate you.
What do they
Stop.
call it in New Zealand? They call it's like tall poppy syndrome, where it's like
Apparently, it's really bad in New Zealand.
It's really
but
bad in
sorry.
New Zealand, and I think it's Canadian thing
I
too.
think it's really bad in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
It has been like, I don't know how old you guys are. I'm 40.
Yeah, we're early 30s.
Early
Early
30s,
30s, yeah. So like I just turned 40. Most of my friends, like I tried to play music here for a long time. Never caught on. And all my friends were the guys that were playing music here like all the time, like at Amigos, and like they were like the scene when I was growing up. Like here, like everyone I knew, all of my friends were musicians. Every time I tried to play, like just like crickets, ghost town. And then when I moved up to the Yukon, part of the reason I stayed there is because I started playing up there. People were like, "Oh, hey, you're great. Yeah, play here all the time. We love you." People would come out to my shows in droves in the Yukon. And like, I know it's a smaller place, but I mean, it's also like Dawson City's a pretty hip place, man.
Oh,
Like,
for
it's-
sure, yeah.
And so, I kind of became like one of the big bands up there for a minute.
That's cool.
And I mean, like, it's the Yukon. It's not a fucking big deal or anything like that. But it was like, hey, people are watching. And then I'd come back and try and play Saskatoon. People were like, you're a musician? You're like, Jesus Christ, I was a musician when I was here as well.
That's like we grew up in a town of 500 people. And I mean, people still talk about when Francois almost won a gold medal in provincial volleyball. And we like nominated for Saskatchewan Music Video of the Year. Nobody gives a shit. Like, couldn't care less. The most supportive people we have are our own community up here is quite supportive. But we have really worked to cultivate that.
The other thing it's in that vein, thinking about like the sheepdogs, and like when they were coming up, no one gave a fuck.
Yeah.
And then once the covers were, we've always supported the sheepdogs. We love the sheepdogs.
No, they didn't.
No, you didn't.
I was here when they were around, man. Like
Yeah.
they're all the same age as me. Like
Yeah.
like those guys in like the Deep Dark Woods as well. Like
Yeah.
those guys were all like like buds. Like I played like a show with you and like back in the day, like a weird like Battle of the Bands at like. Fuck, what was like? No, it wasn't Riley's. It was like whatever the Wash and Slosh was for a while, the Roxy maybe or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And it was right before those guys hit, and like you could feel that there was two ideas about it in Saskatoon around the time that the Rolling Stone thing came out, where there was people being like, oh yeah, I totally want to party with them when the Rolling Stone guys come to town. But there's also like a behind the scenes, like just a bunch of shit talk being like, oh, has to be those fucking guys. You kidding me? Why? You know, it's like,
Why are we the ones on the cover?
exactly. And like that, there's and like I think it probably still exists in a lot of ways here. That kind of like toxic scene mentality. And I know because I still know some of the people who are still the people who are the toxic people who are just now my age and aren't playing in as many bands.
Yeah.
But they're still just dicks.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know that like my partner who's a musician, she's been like, you know, she's toured Europe a bunch and she was big in Ontario when she played there, and she's like always done pretty well with music. And every time she comes to play here, she gets so pissed off because she's like, why is everyone here such a dick about music?
Yeah, I know.
I hate to hear that because
But it has gotten better
yeah.
though. Like especially like, you know, I go from my experience like from like when I was, you know, in my early 20s, and like it was after that like Sask Music started doing a lot more and it started like helping out a lot more bands, and a lot more bands started coming out from here. Like, you know, they're like people like, you know, like Dead South and stuff like that actually started getting more support, and like Andy Schauf and stuff like that.
Yeah, Andy
And
Schauf,
so,
yeah.
but like the funny thing with Andy Schauf is like my wife loves Andy Schauf, and like she has friends here who love Andy Schauf, but all of my friends growing up who were kind of dicks about music are all just sort of like, Andy Schauf, get the marbles out of your mouth, buddy. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
come on, man, he's doing real well. Come on.
No, you can't be bothered.
Yeah, and that's you know, I don't want to get too into that, the
No.
toxic scene syndrome of Saskatoon,
Right,
but
yeah.
but when you bring it up, it's one of those things that always still kind of grinds me a bit. I feel like it is better than it used to be, though.
Well, it's like to like almost to loop back to like, because you asked you about Canadian identity as a whole. It's like I've said this many times. I actually think it's a micro of a macro. Like I think Canadians hate themselves. I do. I really do think.
I
that
think
that
you're
way.
probably right.
Like who are the most popular Canadian artists? Like name some of them: Justin Bieber, Nickelback, and who have done the best. Like Brian Adams is another example. But it's like. And Canadians fucking hate them, and it's just like it's like a me. We all just love to hate whoever does
Drake
well.
is like the only guy people
But
don't
he
hate.
also has a huge contingent of people who just shit on him. It's
true.
It's like this weird thing where it's like any guy from Canada, it seems like, that does
Or
well,
gal.
or gal, sorry, that does well and like starts making a name for themselves. Like you can't help but have like this contingent of 40% of Canadians. They're like, nah, they're shit. It's like, please, can we just get behind one person?
How
And, like,
dare you do?
Yeah, how dare you? It's like, man, and that's the thing. Then we ask, what's our identity? Well, we can't figure it out because we hate ourselves, and we refuse to like accept when somebody is exceptional and great, and like
Maybe we can change that if we just start sharing all of our sandwich recipes, our regional sandwich recipes. Because I mean, if we keep them regional, we keep them like Canadian. Hey, I'm still a Canadian creator, right? So if I'm still doing it here, and I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to the States. Maybe if I can just show everyone's sandwiches, maybe then we can sort of have a bit more pride in some of the things that we create. Although I guess those things aren't necessarily, what would be the word? Human or
well, no, I actually think it's great because like music, because it seems like people need an excuse to hate something, right? So like music is something that's up for like debate and like what is your personal taste and stuff, and then people will if it's a personal taste question, I'm gonna jump on the chance to hate this shit because
Yeah.
I can hate it and I can
Yeah.
make an argument and have a shitty argument. But a nice dad who makes sandwiches,
Well,
you fucking tell me why you hate this, and you're just a dick. Like
And you know what? Like I feel like I get so little hate on my page. It's actually unbelievable. I feel like I get less hate than the other members of Sandwich Talk. And I don't think it has anything to do with me personally, but like there were definitely times at the beginning where like you start to get those and you know they're coming, but like not very many. But every once in a while you get one that really kind of, you know, ruins your day or whatever. And I got over that pretty quickly. Like I think within the first year, you know, a couple would show up, and I learned that the only way to kind of get away from them, and I mean, there are some people you just have to block. You're just like,
Oh, yeah.
no, don't bring any of that shit on my page. No, thank you. No, thank you. But the ones that are just like come at just you kind of thing, the best thing I found is to just like absolutely murder them with kindness. Be so
we love killing you with kindness.
nice to them, and they get so mad.
We had one guy comment on our podcast, one guy that said, and I printed off, we don't have it anywhere, we're going to frame it eventually. It says, "You seem like great guys. Please never do this again." And I was like, "That's about the nicest way you could have told me to eat shit and die."
So you seem nice, but just stop.
You guys seem like great guys. Please, imploring us, never do this again. As if even us creating content that he's not watching is affecting him quite
Just
negatively.
knowing about it.
Just knowing it exists.
I have another question. This one also really interests me. I mean, you're the biggest content creator I've ever met personally. Is it weird to have internet success, and I'm assuming still fairly local anonymity?
Kind of, and like I have more anonymity here probably than I did when I was in the Yukon. But I mean, also the Yukon's only like 40,000 people in the entire territory, and I lived there for like 18 years.
Right.
So I kind of people knew me anyway for the
Right,
most
right.
part. Just from like being like a guy who was like on Parks posters and stuff like that too, right? So like, but like I don't know, I was kind of like that about there. It's kind of nice having more anonymity here, but it's also super nice like kind of getting recognized every once in a while here. Because it feels a bit more special.
Yeah.
Because I mean that wasn't something that really happened to me here before, obviously. Except for I probably should plug this at some point. The only other time that's happened to me in Saskatoon was back in 2003. It's because there was an article on me when I was 19 because I was an extra in the Lord of the Rings, and there was an article in Planet S magazine.
You opened a can of worms with Lord of the Rings. Like,
I like to do that. I like to wait and then open it up.
Francois is the biggest Lord
Nah,
of the Rings
I was gonna say
fan.
this before, but it's fucking weird how you just did this again. It's like every time, it's like your backstory gets fucking goes. It's
Yeah,
like he makes
I've done a lot
sandwiches.
of stuff.
Great, I'm gonna do some research on him. Going to his website. Oh, apparently he makes music too. Does he? Yeah, I guess so. Going to his Spotify. Like, yeah, this is him. He's making music too. That's great. And it's like I was a Parks guy. I was on all the posters. Oh, he's a Parks tour
Yeah.
guy too. Oh, he's an extra in the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It's like you're mad.
I've done some stuff.
Yeah.
But that was there was an article on me in Saskatoon. So there was like a couple of months in like 2003, 2004 when the last movie came out. Because I was just in the last one. I was like in New Zealand for a few months and they were doing reshoots or whatever. And you can see me for like 0.25 seconds.
It doesn't matter.
And,
Francois will worship
and,
the ground he walk on.
and so there was a while there where like people would recognize me on the street for a minute in Saskatoon.
Okay, you got to get very specific with me. Sorry to bother
Oh
you.
no! It's no bother. Believe me, it's more of a bother to everyone who knows me because every time I bring it up, they're like, "Oh my god, again!
I'm the right guy.
Please, you've been milking this
Fran
for
will
20
never-
years."
And that's when we found out that you were Master Chief, like the actual person. This is about the coolest thing.
This is about yeah. So yeah, what scene? How long are you on screen? Did you get to meet anybody? Like those kind of.
Sure, yeah. So I was only there for one day. There were two friends of mine who were at the same hostel as I was, and they both worked for Weta Productions. So this was in 2003. So the first two movies had already come out, but in May of 2003 they did reshoots. And they were looking for like tall, blonde people with long hair. And so I went to an open casting call and got cast because like I used to have hair like down to my waist kind of thing. And just one day on set, had to like fake an IRD number, which was like a New Zealand SIN, fake a bank account because obviously I didn't have either of those things.
Well, you had to
there,
be a
so they-
citizen, obviously.
well, you didn't have to be a citizen, but you had to like they
work,
They were
like-
supposed to pay you. Technically,
Yeah.
they're supposed to pay you, but I didn't have any methods for them to pay me, so I just fudged it all. It was like, yeah, here are my numbers, whatever. I just wanted to be on the set. I would have paid them. And so, like, I went on set for a day. Like craziest thing ever. You've already seen like the first couple movies, so you know what everything's like. And all of a sudden, there's like Rohinian royal guards and orcs without their masks on, walking around with like plates of eggs and shit like that. You're like, and they're like, go eat. You're like, okay. And they get you into wardrobe and stuff. They just give you like like I had like a tunic and like just like a leather breastplate kind of thing. And the guy was like,
So you were Rohirrim?
I was Rohirrim. Yeah, I was Rohirrim. And he's like, all right, mate, you made it to the end. You made it to the final battle. So how'd you do it, mate? What's your secret? And I was like, I would guess I was in the back. And he's like, good answer, good answer. And I went and I basically stood around all day with a bunch of other people who looked kind of like me, but were like various different ages and various better beards and stuff like that. And we just, you'd stand around and then like, I remember walking by one time and then like Viggo Mortensen walks by as Aragorn with like a silver goblet and a silver plate full of grapes and stuff and like nods at you, walks by, you're like, what is this? And yeah, so the day I was there, Viggo Mortensen was there, and Bernard Hill, who plays King Theoden, and Miranda Rose, who was Arwen, and Eowyn, pardon me, and I think Carl Urban was there too. But I think those were the main actors that were there that day. I don't think any of the other big ones were there. There were stand-ins for Gandalf and the Hobbits and stuff. But but the scene was, it was the Hall of Rohan at the after Helm's Deep, beginning of the third movie, where they're all
you got to be
celebrating
in a
Helm's
fucking
Deep.
sick scene. That
Yeah.
is cool.
So yeah, it was basically the party scene. My two pals who were kind of with me, who worked for Weta, they were both in the scene where the hobbits are dancing on the table.
Yeah.
So two of them were the guys that I went there with, because they got sort of special treatment because they knew the production crew and all the rest of it. But I was waiting around, and so basically, when the king says "Hail the victorious dead," I'm at like the very back. You can't see me, but everyone says "Hail." One of those voices is mine, technically.
Yeah.
And then and then right after that scene, it's sort of like, it cuts to Aragorn thoughtfully taking a sip, and then it cuts to a guy carrying a barrel across the screen from left to right. And if you pause it right at that point, with the guy carrying the barrel, I'm in the background, kind of facing the camera for about 0.25 seconds.
I will be fucking pausing.
I was going to say
Shit out of that.
this is an individual who, through high school, you could almost like go through the script of the movie, like recite the movie.
My
just
story
about.
is like,
Extended
so-
edition?
Oh yeah.
Is there any other
It's my-
edition?
it's
Exactly.
This is my literal obsession. Like when I was growing up, it's like my thing was like I didn't just watch the movies on repeat all the time. I also like all of the bonus features. Like I'm sure you've
Yeah.
followed them all
Oh,
the
yeah.
bonus features. Like that was my film school before I went to film school, and so like I would get home from school and I would watch it all afternoon until I went to sleep. For like years I did this. It was just like my thing. And I remember one day I'm like watching the movies again, and
It was a replacement for family.
yeah. And I remember my dad
Human connection.
My dad sitting there at a couch, and I'm watching the movies again. And I'm like sitting there, like mouthing everything. And he's like, "Stop fucking watching these. Like, you don't need to. Like, you say every line. You're looking at it, and you're saying it before they say it. Like, what is the fucking point of watching these again?" I'm like, "Fair play, buddy." And then it's like, and then back because now I watch them probably like maybe once or twice a year. Back then, it was fucking an everyday thing. But yeah, it's like. Yeah, I don't. This is wild, man. Like, I don't think we'll ever have. It'll be really difficult to have a guest. That's cool. Like top this.
I
Like,
mean,
this is
it
wild.
was 0.25 seconds.
Well, that doesn't.
But that
you were
doesn't.
there.
It's
Even if you didn't appear,
It's still
on
won Best
camera.
Picture.
Yeah,
You were part of an Oscar-winning movie.
That's right.
Yeah, 11, baby. Like, not just an
And if
Oscar-winning
I
movie,
wasn't
the-
there, who knows what would have happened?
Yeah, exactly.
There you-
Butterfly
exactly.
effect. It could have been. It would have been a flop.
Exactly.
It would have been a flop.
It would have been a
flop. But yeah, no, it's just like it's one of those things where like people ask you. I always say it's like it's the trajectory of my life. Like that's the reason that I do what I do. It's the reason that I behave the way that I behave. So much of my life can be traced back to those movies and the behind the scenes and like whatever. So it's just a pleasure to like meet somebody who actually got to be on set. That, like,
It
was just
was
involved.
a really cool set,
Yeah.
man. Like because before the movie came out too, it was like there's all these broken down sets backstage where you're sitting there and they're just feeding you all day and all the rest of it, and you're just sitting around with all these other guys who are also weird Lord of the Rings nerds, just being like, do you think that's because you hadn't seen like Sheila yet, and you hadn't seen like the tower at Cirith Ungol or anything
Yeah.
like that, and so it's sort of like, is that? Do you think that's like where they're going to keep Frodo? Do you think that's like Sheila's like cavern, that weird cavern there? Do you think? Everyone's sitting around speculating
like,
forever.
you had the unique pleasure of like you were old enough to actually appreciate because like we said, we're in our early 30s, so we were pretty young when those movies were coming out in theaters. So
Yeah.
it's like you enjoyed them as kids, but it's like you don't really get to appreciate them for what they were at the time that they came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that's such a cool thing. Like if I could, time machine, what would you go do? It's like I'm literally gonna do what you did. I'm gonna go back.
Yeah.
I want to be a
just
fucking
just grow
extra.
your hair and,
Yeah.
and go to New Zealand and hang around during the times they're doing reshoots. And I mean, like they probably did them for the other two movies as well. Like probably the springs before they came out. They all came out in December in 2001, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And so Yeah, I mean, probably the coolest thing was having seen the first two movies and just getting to be there for the reshoots. You know, you're like, because you're already in the world. You're just waiting for it to finish.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you get to be in it.
Yeah.
I've heard tale that they. Sorry to cut you off, Fran. That like, I'm not sure where in the filming process in terms of the three movies, but there was I think probably when they were filming Helm's Deep, it was like anyone who was over 6 feet tall in New Zealand. It's like you're in this movie, buddy. Like
I think almost anyone in New Zealand who had any desire at all to be in it was probably in it. Like if you look at like, you know, press junkets around the time, or like, you know, even within like a couple of years of, you look at people who are like, say, from New Zealand, like for example, like Brett McKenzie from Flight of the Conchords. Yeah. He was one of like the delegation of elves at the Council of Elrond. You know, like anyone who's from New Zealand is like they were probably like, oh, that was my foot there, you know?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And there were definitely guys that I was there with, was like, oh yeah, I was in a couple other scenes, you know. They've called me in a couple of times. You know?
Well, man, New Zealand's like, it's very unique because there's very few, or is there any other country that's happened that in that way where it was just like, if you're from New Zealand, you are now a Lord of the Rings. That's your primary character trait, is that Lord of the Rings. And then it's like, I don't care about, okay, yeah, but Lord of the Rings, you love Lord of the Rings, right? You're from New Zealand. It's like, yes, I was there. The movies were filmed there. It, like, they make that joke on Flight of the Conchords where it's like, every time he says, yeah, I'm actually from New Zealand, and they're like, oh, I love the Lord of the Rings. And it's like, that has nothing to do with me. I'm from a country. I don't, like, why am I just involved with the films? Like,
but I was in it for 2 seconds.
Yeah. Flitwick, I think was his character's name, and then they retconned it and changed his name in The Hobbit, and they gave him an actual name. I'm like, why did you just stick with Flitwick? It was great.
Oh yeah, he did have a different name in The Hobbit. Or
Flitwick was like a fan name they gave him,
Mm-hmm.
and then in The Hobbit they gave him an actual name. I'm trying to remember what it was. Yeah, that's so cool. I even remember when the Hobbit movies were being filmed or whatever. Big day for me, and I remember being like, can I convince my parents to buy me a ticket to New Zealand for long enough? Because I was still in school, I think, while they were being filmed at like high school. And it was like, I don't think this will fly. Like, I don't think they'll let me stay in New Zealand, because you're going to have to be there for whatever, 2 months probably to like time it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it didn't. And it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, if that happened now, like if they were to shoot something like it would have to be a Peter Jackson production, to be fair. Like, I enjoy the Rings of Power, but if Peter Jackson was like, I'm doing something, I would be like, I'm getting a ticket. I'm
You
living
should
there
probably
for 2
go
months.
hang out there for a bit, see what happens.
Just sit in the bar, keep going. Yeah, I don't hate being on camera.
There was definitely a point where I think it was around the time that like that Game of Thrones was getting pretty big, and I knew they were filming in Dubrovnik in Croatia. There was a time when there was like a friend of mine and I'd been like, should we just maybe like go hang out in Dubrovnik and see if we can't
weasel our way in
I
there?
bet if we hung around there long enough, we could get in. Like, I'm kind of old timey looking. I bet I could get in.
Yeah.
Man, you peaked. Like, I don't, you will never be an extra on any. Like, that is in my opinion. Well, it is literally the coolest thing you could have ever been. You weren't even an extra. I love everything. You were an extra in the Return of the King.
Yeah, one of the best one. Yeah.
Have you made a Lord of the Rings sandwich?
I don't think I have actually. I made I've referenced it a couple of times in videos. I think someone asked about it once, someone who knew me, and I made a video of it that maybe didn't even have a sandwich in it. But I made a kiwi burger, which is kind of the same as the Australian lot burger, and it's it's essentially the big thing in Australia and New Zealand. At least in my experience, I've never been to Australia, but especially in New Zealand, egg and beetroot on every sandwich.
Really?
And so big thing there. It was a weird thing. I remember like getting off of the plane like really early. And I was like 19, but hostel wasn't open yet. Go get a sandwich somewhere. It was like boiled egg and beets. Did not expect that. And it's like an Anzac thing, I guess they. I think the Australian lot burger also has bacon, but there was a kiwi burger. I remember because all of my friends went and got the Hunger Buster meal at McDonald's because they got kicked out of the line for the casting call for Lord of the Rings, and they all went and got the Hunger Buster, which included a Mick Kiwi burger at McDonald's, and I'm pretty sure that was just like egg, beet, burger, cheese, and the lot kind of thing.
That's
interesting.
But I made it. I made it without bacon, and that pissed the Australians off, I think.
Really?
But the thing is, when you piss people off with your sandwiches, you get better engagements.
Right.
Yeah.
Start making hate
Like
sandwiches.
really purposefully.
Just make
leave.
anything and call it English and put like a wrong sauce on it, or like toast the bread. Oh, and the Brits will stay up all night. Just
I'm from South Africa, and we have this food item called biltong, which is like it's kind of like jerky's the closest thing, but it's like you prepare it differently. But it's ruthless. If you ever see a guy who's not from South Africa try to make biltong and then post it on social media, every fucking comment is South African being like, well, fucking actually, that's not how you do that. You didn't even fucking do this. It's like, man, he's trying. He's giving our culture a go. Nobody cares about us. Cheer him on.
When Americans make poutine, they're very aware of this now, and they're like, okay,
Yeah, you see
I
those a
tried to get cheese curds. I can't buy cheese curds in this state or any of the adjacent states. I'm sorry. This is my best attempt. Kill yourself.
how
Dare you.
Meanwhile, in Western Canada, great cheese.
Exactly.
A few provinces over.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about this already, but I'm curious. Potential sandwich podcast, maybe. What else do you see in the future of Sandwich Dad and your content? Is there anything interesting other than the podcast that kind of maybe is on the horizon, possibly?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ideas. It's
Yeah.
kind of it's about getting them done. So I've been trying to get down to Chicago at some point to go and actually hang with my friend Jim and try some spots down there. And I would love to go to some other places, like just sort of like sandwich sort of meccas in the States, like Chicago or Philadelphia. I've got like a friend down there who sends me stuff from there sometimes, or of course going to New York again. And it would be great to do some go and try some actual, big time American sandwiches where they're from, rather than
Like
trying
Cat's
to.
Deli, kind of like.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been to Schwartz's, and honestly, I'd love to just go to Montreal again. There's the sandwich, the Walensky there that I've never tried, and I've spent lots of time in Montreal, but the Walensky I've never been to. It's an old deli that's basically like a bologna and salami, homemade, pressed with mustard, and it's it's an old school favorite in Montreal, but you can make that at home easy enough. But they're making their own sort of in-house kind of meats, and you're like, I probably got to go try the real thing. So there's some potential, hopefully, sandwich travel on the horizon.
Cool.
It's a bit tricky until the little one gets a little bit older.
Yeah, of course.
But other things on the horizon is I have a friend who's a filmmaker out in Vancouver Island, and he and I have been talking about things here and there, about trying to get some sort of pitch together to do maybe a sandwich series where I can do more traveling around Canada and trying to base more of the Sandwiches of Canada thing on a small project, whether it's episodic or whether it's just sort of like a character piece, and we try and do a small road trip or something like that.
That'd be cool.
Something that we could partially pitch or something like that. But again, it's one of those things where it's hard to find the time to do it. We've been talking about it for about a year and a half now, and it's kind of gone dark for a minute. But it's only gone dark for a minute because we're both we got other things to do. We'll put a pin in this. And we'll come back to it later.
I think you said you got a small one. Yeah.
Yeah, and that makes everything tricky, honestly. But there's lots on the horizon. One of the things that I always said is that making TikTok videos is fun. I'm not going to just make TikTok videos for the rest of my life, though. I'd like to sort of keep my reputation as sort of a guy who loves sandwiches or travels around and eats sandwiches. I probably won't stop making content, but I'm hoping to find a way to change that content up and not necessarily stop doing what I'm doing, but to try and continue with some new artistic vision of doing it, something where I can actually do more history of it. I've thought about doing kind of because I history of as a performer, with both with Parks and with playing music and stuff, figuring out some way to do a live show or something like that where I can actually do sandwich presentations, and sort of that a stepping stone to that might be talking about a grilled cheese for 30 minutes on YouTube or something, and what it's all about. And yeah, kind of workshopping stuff like that. creating posters of all the sandwiches that I've made, like actually trying to like, and not just for like the sake of merch, but just for trying to create something visual so that I can have like a nice visual of like 100 sandwiches that are like my favorite or something that actually has like a really, that's like a really nice poster that people would want to have, that I want to have like behind me instead of just using my crappy one I downloaded off of Reddit and printed at Walmart, you know, like lots of a million different ideas that are always kind of going on. I've been thinking kind of lately of trying to parody a bunch of like my old songs that I was doing when I was actually like playing music like in my 20s and stuff, and trying to like go back to a bunch of my old songs and parody them as sandwich songs. Trying to find ways to make them into sandwich songs. I can't tell yet if that's a really stupid idea, but it doesn't mean I'm not looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think take anything off the table, especially like I think I like to hear that you're saying you've got artistic vision beyond TikTok, because I watch a lot of this short form content and it's melting my brain. But when I see people like, yes, this is not the limit to what I'm interested in doing, because that's all some people want to do.
Yeah.
Like get TikTok rich and then just make stupid mind-numbing content. But when you're coming from a place that's got some integrity, that really speaks to me in a big way.
And you can tell watching any of your videos that it's like you even without knowing directly, but it's like you've had a history as an artist. Like you've
Oh, thanks, man.
You've been going at it for a while. Like it's like this wasn't your first. It's like you weren't a kid who was like, I'm going to copy everyone else's video. You're doing your own thing. You're blazing your own trail. You're trying to introduce integrity to what you do. And like you said, like you've mentioned many times throughout this podcast, but you've just been like, I'm not trying to rip somebody else off. I want to do my thing in my way.
Well, that's always like the an artist's greatest fear, right? It's like, just don't tell me I'm ripping somebody off.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Come on, man. I'm really trying hard not to. And that's why I always say, like, I don't want to. Like, I've got another one of Jake's sandwiches to do because his most recent 10 out of 10, he did like 2 10 out of 10s in a week. And after his first 10 out of 10 he basically tagged all the rest of us on Sandwich Talk, and we're like, hey, can you guys confirm this is a 10? And so we all tried it. And then so every time it's a 10, I try to, if I can get the ingredients, I can't get everything.
Because you get some crazy stuff too.
Yeah, well, exactly. And like, he's got the McElroys up in it right now, giving him like his wild magic list at the moment. And one of the 10s he got has this almond crunch condiment. Like, it's kind of like a chili crisp, but it's not chili. It's like an almond crunch, like developed by like Michelin chefs, and it's out of New York City and stuff like that. And I guess it's just kind of like a mind-blowing condiment. And I went to go look for it, and I was like, oh, don't have to make this sandwich because I can't get it in Canada. They don't ship to Canada. And sure enough, Jim gets it, makes the sandwich, and he's like, no, this is really good. I'm shipping you some.
Awesome.
So I have it, and I got to make that sandwich sometime. Maybe not this week.
I think my first introduction to you organically, your content was, I'm not sure if it was the 10 on Roll for Sandwich, but it was like the one that like the peanut butter, crunchy peanut butter, and like the spring roll taste vibes.
Yeah,
to it.
that was the first one that Jake had asked us to do. Yeah, and that was like Sandwich 42 was what he named it eventually. Yeah, and that's when he started naming the sandwiches. Maybe because in my video I said, Jake, you got to name this one. I like to take credit for that.
Yeah.
I'll ask him. Maybe it was me. I will ask him that. But it was what was it? It was peanut butter, goat cheese, sriracha mayo. Was it iceberg lettuce?
And like chicken,
banana peppers,
and then turkey or chicken, or it was like something like that. I think.
Yeah. No, I think it was vegetarian.
Was it vegetarian? Yeah, you might be right.
What was the other thing that was on it? But it didn't seem like it was going to work, and it actually was like super delicious. What's it? No, it was the sriracha mayo. There's the feta cheese, the
goat cheese,
banana peppers, lettuce. Oh, it was avocado, I think, maybe.
Oh, peanut butter and avocado.
Peanut butter
That's
and
right.
avocado.
That I remember thinking like, that texture of that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Peanut butter, avocado, goat cheese, hot peppers, lettuce, and sriracha mayo. That's what it was. Or no, it was kimchi mayo. But it was, it was a really, and I think and like every time you ask him too, the one thing that he's like, the sandwich that he'd always go back to is that one. That was like his first 10 kind of thing. The first one was like, how the hell does this work? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you have enough time, should we whip up a couple more sandwiches before we close out? Do you have the time for that?
Yeah, I think so. Let me just make sure that I don't have
you haven't got
a text
1,000
from
notifications.
No, not so bad so far. Yeah, it's only 9:48. Yeah.
Okay.
just to how's it
It's just
going?
a wall of help, please, help.
I was just thinking, I
The
really,
baby's got a knife.
I was really want to try Andrew's peanut butter and cheese, and that cucumber has been calling my name. So
Yeah.
the peanut butter and cheese.
well, why
pretty
don't you
great.
make us that, and then
Sure.
if you wouldn't mind making us the cucumber tea
Yeah,
sandwich,
of course. Yeah, let's do it.
I'll get some of this cherry
Also,
juice.
Someone's got to eat the last cherry sandwich
Yeah.
over there too.
Kelsey, you should try it. It's pretty good. Here, I'm gonna. I'll bring it over to you. It's surprisingly. I mean,
It is. It's like a snack. That is the definition of a little snack.
There's a lot of sandwiches that I've made where I've been like, there's just no way this is good, and usually if there's a recipe for it, not always.
I feel like if you like cream cheese, you would like that.
It reminds me
Yeah.
of like, have you ever had cream cheese with like a little bit of jam on it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
It
reminds me of
Exactly.
that.
Yep.
Okay, Andrew, what do you need? Aged cheddar.
Yes.
My oldest daughter's always trying to make cream cheese and jam sandwiches, and I keep telling her no. And I run out of reasons why not. Most of it I don't want to use on my cream cheese.
So we're filming. While you're doing this, I guess I'll just ask you fucking random questions I can think of. But it's like we're filmmakers. Like what's your favorite movie if you can think of one, or what a movie you really really enjoy?
That's a good question. I don't know what my favorite movie would be. Yeah, I should have prepared an answer for that one. Favorite movie.
Or just one you really enjoy. I know it's always a tough question.
I mean, there's so many movies that like I've watched like 10 million times. Like when I was in high school too, I probably watched like friggin' like Dazed and Confused and Empire Records a million times.
Oh, Dazed and
And
Confused.
like I don't know, what else was I super into? I really liked one of my favorite. Like I loved, and I think it's worth all the hype that it got. Was Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh,
That was
I
still
totally
like,
agree.
That was just one of like I don't think I felt that good about a movie in a long time. I feel like there was another one recently, but I can't think of what it was. But like that one especially was like, this is absolute perfection. And it's kind of funny to like watch that and then go watch like another Daniels movie like Swiss Army Man, or watch like their video for Turned Down for What, and you're like, you guys have an Oscar now.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, it kind of changes the perspective on all that.
Swiss Army Man is one of the weirdest fucking things.
Yeah.
It's wild that movie is as good as it is, given like
It has to be.
It's interesting.
You can't do that and then not be like, this is gonna work. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way you swing for the fences that hard, and like, or you're like, people might like it. Like, and that's the thing. The movie is. Well, you can tell they're talented filmmakers. Like they know how to tell a story and craft a story. Like
The ending of that movie.
Yeah.
Do you make recreational sandwiches anymore?
Yeah, all the time. I don't film every sandwich that I make, and
I just can't imagine.
Mostly because like I make a lot of like just like bologna sandwiches. Like if I'm just sort of like in a rush, which is kind of often because I have a bunch of kids and usually I don't eat, or I have to eat like cold macaroni and shit like that. It's just like quick bologna sandwich. I don't want to film that every time I make it. I mean, I used to do, and I don't do it as much as I used to because I'm old and I get heartburn if I eat after hours these days.
I hear you.
Just too much of my youth spent drinking too much, I guess probably. But the Sandwich at After Dark series that I started was meant to be all like the weird shit that was kind of just me using up leftovers, like leftover macaroni and cheese from my kids and hot dogs, and just putting ketchup and mustard in a wrap and like frying it like a quesadilla or something like that. I was doing a lot of that like kind of at the beginning, probably even pre-TikTok, a little bit more of that. But I've been making less After Dark stuff. And I think also one of the weird things that's been kind of tricky is now that I'm not filming in the app as much and I'm just doing, halfway decent video that has editing, I tend to take liberty and take more takes, and so everything takes longer to edit and to film. And usually I'm doing it when someone's sleeping. I'm usually doing it when my son's asleep. So I have to do voiceover as well, so that's an additional time that it takes. And so I've kind of like painted myself in a corner of like trying to do things that are more professional, but taking way more time to do everything, and then thus not having enough time to make as many videos maybe as I would like. So when it comes to like 8 o'clock at night being like, okay, everyone's in bed, I got to get rid of these leftovers. I'm going to make this stupid wrap. Am I going to get out my tripod and film it? or am I just starving and want to go to bed? and there is a huge part of me that's like, I should just film that. But there's also like, is the wife gonna make fun of me for getting on my tripod and doing the stupid things that I'm making? And like, depends on the day.
Right.
But maybe. Do I want to have to deal with that? No, not really. But yeah, I honestly wish I filmed a lot more of the sandwiches, and I wish I had more time to do it. But you know,
At least you're at a phase where it's like you have this social media stuff to point to where you're like, views, I'm getting them. You're not like, it's gonna work one day.
I'm starting to think of like doing the like reposting some stuff. But then I'm like, oh, that just seems so lazy. I should just remake it. Why can't I just eat this sandwich again? You know. But we got to try this this peanut butter and was this Balderson's what year there?
5 year.
5 years.
This is the
all right.
bougie version. When I was growing up, it started out as just Cheese Whiz, peanut butter Cheese Whiz,
Yeah,
which is
okay.
fantastic. This is like a little bit more elevated, but
Oh well, let's give it a
Cheers.
taste test here.
That's pretty good.
I'm into that.
Man,
I'm a sucker for peanut butter personally, so
I think
I'm
if you toss some diced up maraschino cherries on here,
You can try. There's some right in front of you.
add a fucking lick of sweetness. But it's like the cheese and the peanut butter do, yeah.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of extra saltiness. You know, one of the best peanut butter combinations that I've had, and I've made a lot of them, is the Wendigo sandwich. Have you heard of that one?
no.
Oh,
Francois loves the Wendigo.
I love Wendigos.
For the Wendigo, it was invented by this, I can't remember what the guy's name is. I'll have to look it up
Anyone else
again.
for
Ugh. But he's,
Do you want another?
yeah, sure, I'll grab one.
It's not a beer. It's just what we had in the fridge.
Works for me. It's peanut butter, mayonnaise, pickles, and bacon.
That is it fucked up that already sounds really good to me?
No, it's really good. And I'll tell you one thing. The best peanut butter sandwich I always thought as a kid was peanut butter and pickles. I don't know if you guys have had that one.
I'm a fan.
It's a good one. And so like if you like that, add bacon to it. Oh, okay. Well, that's
That's a no-brainer.
that makes it better. Sure. Why wouldn't it?
What-
Now we got
yeah.
some extra smoke and salt. Yeah, perfect. A little extra fat. Then you add a little bit of mayonnaise, and you're like, hold on a second. So now this is just gonna go down a little smoother too.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pretty good sandwich.
Man, it's interesting, like, just now that we're because, like, I guess rarely in my life do I spend a lot of time just thinking about sandwiches as a concept, you know what I mean? But you obviously do. But it's like now, like, thinking about it, I'm like, what a really easy way to get to introduce elements, like very separate elements, and see how they play against each other, like a peanut butter, sharp cheese, something sweet like a maraschino cherry, like we just did. Like I'm glad that I'm really glad we started with the maraschino cherries. And some you suggested that.
Yeah, I wasn't
Like-
sure it would be as good as it was.
Like
It
but
was just having to work.
It was it's such a wild card element, and it's like that now. Like looking at these sandwiches, like when you're cooking a lot of meals, sometimes it can be difficult to distill why certain flavors are working or like how certain flavors are working because you've diced them up so fine. They're so mixed
Sure, yeah.
together. They're so whatever that you don't necessarily know what's playing into what, and you're giving your best guess. But with sandwiches, you can very directly like, nope, the sweetness is from the maraschino. That's what's producing that. That's what's that because we have 3 ingredients here. Man,
Plus, you get a bite of every
Yeah.
if you make the sandwich right, you get a bite of each element
Yeah.
in each bite that you take.
I feel like if you went to like even well, I mean, by the time you're going to culinary school, I guess you're probably already very familiar with these things. But it's like, let's say you had like, if it existed, some like base culinary school, it'd be such a good way to be like, try all these combinations and then tell me why they work, tell me why they don't work. It's like in, I remember when we went to film school, one of the most important things they said to us in like theory class was, don't just you can't just say to somebody, you like a movie, you don't like a movie. That's worthless. You need to be able to tell people why, and you need to get very specific with it, because then you're going to be helpful to people, and then people are going to understand you better and who you are as a person. And to translate that to sandwiches, it's like same thing. It's like being able to eat a sandwich, say why I liked it. Why did you like it? It's like, well, the maraschino, the sweetness from the maraschino, it played off the whatever. What was the other thing in that sandwich? I can't remember.
Cream cheese
Cream
and butter.
It played off the cream cheese.
2 ingredients.
It was butter
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh yeah, butter as well.
Kind of one of those Subtly brilliant things. Yeah, sandwiches.
It is almost a more visual medium than certain other culinary endeavors as well, because you can, like you said, it's pretty astute. You can see everything that's in it, and
The cross section.
Exactly, the cross section is this visual representation that you can count what's in there. You can see what's in there for the most part. Like apart from sauces or anything that's combined, it's pretty simple to see what went into that sandwich and what's giving it its flavor, what's giving it its texture. So it really is, and like you talk about open face sandwiches even more so. They're basically like the models of the sandwich world. They don't even need a top piece of bread.
I feel like it's so funny because like Sandwich Dad, you do sandwich based content, but it's like you might think you might get in your head that it's like, well, that's what he does for like TikTok. He doesn't want to. But it's like, no, you actually have a passion for this shit.
Yeah.
It's not just like I'm making sandwiches on TikTok for something to do. It's like, no, I fucking love sandwiches.
See, that's why
I talk about.
You got to get into it. I mean, if I was just doing it just to do it, just to make a sandwich, I think that would definitely show.
For sure.
It does. It absolutely does. Yeah. No.
And being into it is just it's like for me, like when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a chef, but I worked in one kitchen when I was 16, and it was like, oh, this life isn't for me. This job fucking sucks.
Yeah. I had a very similar, it's funny you say, I had a very similar experience where I also thought, oh, like culinary school, like chef. Had an experience in a kitchen. It's like, oh, it's not like the Food Network where you get to like make what you want and do like, it's like, oh, this is what that is. Oh yeah. No, I'm cool. Thanks.
That's okay. No, I'll be all right. It's like food military. Like, Jesus Christ.
I have two pretty obvious and generic questions, but I have to ask them just because. So I guess I know it's very tough to say favorite or not favorite. What are your go-to like? What's your go-to low effort sandwich, and what's your go-to like? I want to do something a little higher effort.
Ooh, that's
grill
a good question.
stuff.
I like that question because of that. It has the higher effort one. Like the low effort sandwich for me is almost always going to be just like a bologna sandwich, and it's going to be like I've tried to like perfect it and tried to make it so that it's exactly kind of how I like it. And so for me, that's become kind of bakery white bread if I can get it, butter both sides, and then one piece of meat goes right on the butter. There's something about like the way the bologna touches the meat that's perfect. I like to put the cheese up in the middle, another piece of bologna because I don't like the cheese and the mustard touching for some reason. I don't know why. And then mustard and then mayonnaise, and then just like that, and it makes a really nice cross section because it's kind of got the cheese is sandwiched between the bologna too, and it's a really easy low effort sandwich. You can really kind of overdo if you do it too often, but it's nice to have every once in a while. It's just like, this is a perfect garbage sandwich meal.
Yeah. Quick. Yeah. It's simple, but it gives you that salt that,
But like high effort, like in a similar vein is probably, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do almost like a jambon beurre. So I'd have like a baguette. And that's like, if I'm going shopping and I'm feeling like it's like, oh, I'll spend the $1 on the shitty Superstore baguette, or maybe the $3 on like the Ace Bakery one, or whatever, depending on how I feel. And then take that home and cut that open, and then butter both sides, lots of butter. You have to put lots of butter on a baguette, and then you just throw some ham in there or some salami if you have it. But like just the butter and ham, the jambon beurre, that's like classic French sandwich.
Classic French sandwich, yeah.
But then if I'm going more higher effort, I'll probably throw in like some soft cheese, like some camembert or some brie, and then I'll throw in like a couple slices of pickle or something like that. And then it's just like, to me, that's one of the perfect sandwiches. I only ever went to Europe once, and I flew into Paris, and we checked into like an Airbnb. Basically, went to a grocery store, grabbed a baguette, some camembert, some like little French sausages, and like a nice pop top bottle of like craft French beer or something.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was beer. It might have been cider. I have no fucking clue with this. But at that point, I was pretty tired and jet lagged, and basically went down to the banks of the Seine, and everyone's just sitting there on the river doing the exact same thing, just kind of like, not just even like just like picking at whatever and like having like a drink and and just sitting there and just like, oh, didn't bring a knife. I guess I'm taking the cheese out with my hand and smearing it on with my thumb and kind of like just mushing up a sausage and throwing on some just but you're in Paris. It's French. You know,
Yeah,
you're,
yeah,
you're on the sand. It's like one of the best sandwiches you can ever have. You didn't even have a knife. You just did it with your hands, and you're sitting there, and it's nice out, and there's everyone else is doing it around you.
So it's
and,
the atmosphere that kind of almost adds to that.
And so like the closest I can do to do that at home is just buy like a shitty grocery store baguette, some soft cheese, some salami, or some ham, and a little bit of pickle, and you're like, it's not the same, but it takes you back there a little
Takes
bit.
you back,
Right,
yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, I saw some content creator talking about baguettes and butter, specifically hearing you say that. And he's like, I'm an American. I've been living in France for however long. And he's like, there's something different about the French or European butter or whatever. He's like, you put on so much butter that if this was in America, it would be disgusting.
Yeah.
But there's something about the way that the European or the French butter is that, like, you have to load
Man,
it.
even in South Africa, it's something that every fucking Canadian will say to me and have said to my family over the years, and they just seem so disgusted because South Africans put butter on fucking everything.
And they put butter on, like, as thick as I would put cheese on a sandwich.
Yes, yeah, sometimes. And yeah, it's like I've never run into a native Canadian who's been like they've just been disgusted. It's just whatever, and it's like I don't know what it is or like yeah.
It's a new thing though too. It's something that kind of developed probably like sometime after the 70s, I would guess, because most sandwiches in old recipe books, and you see this in a lot of Barry's content, is that most of them was butter the bread. And you know, it's one of those things that they still do in the UK and obviously in South Africa.
It's a very British thing, yeah.
Is buttering the bread, and like I can't speak to their quality of butter. I know that French butter is really great. It's almost it almost is like a cheese, you know, like it's like an extra dairy product on there. It tastes different. Maybe it's not as like our butter. Maybe it's a bit oilier or something. I don't know, but
Right.
It's I still like putting a lot of butter on there. You know, I wouldn't load on the margarine necessarily.
No.
Although I don't mind margarine. I'm not anti-margarine.
This guy's very anti-margarine.
It's okay.
He's come around.
Not a personal thing I would personally buy, but I get
You
the
have a preference
convenience.
for butter.
I have a
Probably
preference for
is
butter.
the better way to
big
say it.
time.
You're gonna get
Oh, yeah,
butter
I would-
every time. Yeah,
I would rather have the butter every time,
Yeah,
but
that's probably the better way to
One of
say
the Sandwich Dad secrets is sometimes if I'm like I'm making a sandwich and I'm like, I didn't take the butter out.
Margarine. It's
Butter
too
the
convenient.
bread.
Margarine.
You hear in the video.
Also, I was going to say this, and I noticed this is like not a constant, but a familiar thread throughout the videos is like using no name brand, like knockoff. Like I also think that creates like a familiarity with it. You know, like it more
Especially
down
as
to
a
earth,
Canadian, yeah.
more down to earth. Than like,
Definitely, as a Canadian, you recognize it. I think even the Americans always are kind of puzzled by the no name brand as well because it is just, you know, it's unique for sure. It's different than a lot of other store brands. But I think part of the reason that I wanted to kind of do what I was doing and sort of the idea of what the whole Sandwich Dad thing was about was like. When it started, I lived in the Yukon. I couldn't get a hold of everything. I wanted to make the sandwiches of the world with like the cheapest, shittiest ingredients because ingredients are expensive. I don't have a whole lot of time. And like, you're watching some creators who have been like, all right, let's make a beef dip sandwich. First, we have to take this gigantic $60 roast.
yeah, it's like we're using Wagyu
And
on
then
everything.
we're going to spend like 8 hours braising it. And it's like, oh man, just buy some deli meat and put it in some beef broth. It's fine.
Does everything need to be this
Because that's
high
how
effort?
that's how they're doing it over at the diner down the street.
Yeah.
I mean this, and like my whole like mission statement was like, not everything has to be 5 stars, man. You can have good stuff with shitty ingredients. And like the thing that always really bugged me about like like Food Network stuff sometimes was like, ours is the best because we always use the freshest ingredients. It's like, but not everybody has access to the freshest ingredients. Just use what you have and enjoy it. It's fine.
I also love the
If your butter is cold, just use margarine.
It's like you're gonna be fine.
You'll be fine. It's like, okay, it's not going to taste as good, but guess what? You're not a chef and you didn't make it for somebody. It's for you. Just let yourself make something that's not 5 stars.
And I've
It's
seen
so
enough.
much cheaper. It's so much easier.
I've seen enough of those viral
love
videos
that.
of like blind taste tests where they'll take shit and they'll take high end stuff and they'll give it to a chef and they won't let them see what it is.
Yeah.
And I've seen enough times that they fuck it up that it's like, okay, some of this is
Perception, yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. Like I obviously love food. I love like fresh ingredients. I love spending ridiculous amounts of money at like fine dining restaurants. We have lots of great ones here in Saskatoon that I like going to quite often. If I can ever get my parents to look after my kids. Part of the reason I moved here.
What's your that great? I'm glad you said that restaurant in Saskatoon that if you had to be like, go to this restaurant, if you haven't been there, what would be that restaurant? Because I'm always
that's a good
wondering about
question.
that.
But I mean, like, it really depends on kind of what you're looking for. Like, if you're looking for like a high end kind of thing, if you're looking for like fine dining, like probably one of the best is Primal Pasta. If you haven't been there,
Yeah, one
God.
time, but yeah,
it doesn't really get a whole lot better than that.
That's a whole experience in and of itself.
Yeah. And like, and you know, if you ever got a chance to go to the Hollows before it was gone, that place was amazing as well.
I've heard good things. Yeah.
I haven't been to, and like, you know, I went to Aiden when it was still around, and Sticks and Stones when it was around, and now
Their ones was cool.
now Dale McKay's got F&B, which I haven't been to yet.
I've heard good things.
I'd like to go to it. I mean, I liked his other two restaurants. I think, you know, one of the burger that he used to have at Aiden was probably one of the best burgers I've ever had, and I thought that maybe I was just having a good day or something, but then I remember like, you know, being like, that can't be like the best burger I ever had just because it was in Saskatoon. Like, come on. And then I went to go look at like the reviews, and so many of the reviews were like, this was like one of the best burgers I ever had. So obviously he was doing something right there. I don't think he has the same burger at this new place, but he's got like a smash burger, so I'll have to go try that.
Love a
one of these
smash
days.
burger.
So
Have you checked out Goblin's Grill yet?
I have. I've only been once. I had because I only went to go get. I got the bologna stack.
Was it any? That's the one thing I haven't tried there yet. Were you a fan?
I was a fan. I still need to go back there. The only problem is if I go back there, I'm going to want to make more content. I don't want people to think that I'm favoring them because I've got so much other stuff I want to do.
Yeah.
And I want to go back and I want to give them more content because I like their stuff so much. And I want to try their burgers because I've only had the bologna stack. And those guys are doing exactly what it seems like they're like still a secret in Saskatoon, and they're in kind of a weird location.
It's a random
But-
strip mall. Like what? Why is this great little hole in the wall? But it's perfect.
And like, you know, like they're still using like the artisan stuff. Like, you know, their bologna is like from Pig and Pantry. You know, like it's from like the artisan butcher downtown. You know,
That was my
So,
next
like-
question: is if you knew about Pig and Pantry? 'Cause
And I haven't been there for a sandwich yet. Like, do they do sandwiches in the like for lunch sometimes? Like I've heard
think
only
maybe.
sometimes.
So I actually, my girlfriend turned me on to Pig and Pantry. We've been together for a while. Jordan, the owner, used to just have a little stall at the farmer's market where he would sell, like, he had two types of sausage, and that was his thing. And she's like, oh, I tried this sausage from the farmer's market. We have to get it. And it's the best I've ever had. It's the garlic Parmesan sausage that he has. It's just amazing. And I kind of have like been going there since he eventually got a storefront, and now he supplies like many of the restaurants in Saskatoon. He supplies various different meat products to them. And it's just so cool seeing that guy go from like having a chat with him for 20 minutes at the farmer's market, and then now he's got this business that's doing well and supplying all these restaurants, and it's cool.
Yeah, and I really got to go check it out. Like, I've heard that he has sandwiches sometimes.
He did a pop-up kitchen once.
Yeah, I've heard that too. It's just a matter of getting there. And like, usually I try and visit things on like Thursdays and Fridays. That's usually when I'm downtown working.
Yeah.
And I try and do something downtown when I'm doing that. But I do have to get back to Goblin's Grill as well. I got to get there. The problem with Pig and Pantry too is it's right next to the Park Cafe, and I always want to pop into the Park Cafe and say hey to there. Just one final story about the Park Cafe. I've mentioned this. I've done a couple of like TikTok lives. And I keep mentioning this. This is a story that somebody told me. A friend of mine who knows Patrick, the owner of Park Cafe. I did a video on the Death by Cheese, and like I've done multiple videos on that. Like when I lived in the Yukon, it was still a sandwich where I would try and make it at home because I knew some of the guys used to cook there and yada yada. It's a deep fried grilled cheese sandwich. You got to try and make that one. Right?
Yeah,
It's an iconic sandwich. But I finally went in and I got it, and I got it with onion rings, and everyone's so great there, and it was delicious, and the video did pretty good. I think mostly on Facebook. It actually got some pretty good numbers, and a friend of mine went in to just I guess for lunch or whatever, and Patrick the owner said to her, "Hey, you should thank your friend John for coming in the other day. Like, yeah, we've been selling Death by Cheeses like crazy, which is awesome. Like, we never sell this many, so that's great. Thanks. He does say thanks for doing the video." And I haven't gone back in to talk to him, but I guess after that, he told her the story that he was in on a Monday, and they're usually closed on Mondays, the park, and got a phone call, and he answered the phone, and the person that on the phone said, "Oh, good, you're open." He said, "Oh, well, actually, no, I just came to do a few things," and the phone rang, so I answered it. And they're like, "Well, would you open for a former prime minister?" And he's like, what? And so I guess somehow or other, Stephen Harper saw my video and was in the area. I don't know if it was an aide or whoever called, but someone tried to get Patrick Topin on a Monday to give him a death by cheese because he had seen my video. And
That's wild.
Patrick said no. That's why he's the best. But
That's amazing.
There's
I have to confirm that story. I haven't gone back and asked him